Coming up, we celebrate lacrosse going back to the Olympics.
The medicine of lacrosse does what it does. It brings people together in a good way, a good mind and a good heart.
And ICT's leaders are honored by two national organizations, the National Native American Hall of Fame and the Women's Media Center. We have those interviews plus headlines ahead on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The ICT Newscast is sponsored by the Indian Land Tenure Foundation, a nonprofit organization serving American Indian nations and people in the recovery and control of their rightful homelands. On the web at iltf.org.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Chinangale, we're so glad you could join us. I'm Mackenzie Allen Charmley. Aaliyah is away. We start with news of President Joe Biden nominating the former Attorney General of the Cherokee Nation to the federal bench in Oklahoma. Sarah E. Hill served as Attorney General of the Cherokee Nation from 2019 to 2023. She's currently a lawyer in practice and has a JD from the University of Tulsa and a BA from Northeastern State University. In a joint statement by the National Congress of American Indians and the Native American Rights Fund, Hill has a history of litigating on behalf of Indigenous rights. According to NCAI Executive Director Larry Wright Jr., NCAI strongly supports President Biden's nomination of Sarah Hill to be the first ever Native American woman to sit on the federal bench in the state of Oklahoma. NARF Executive Director John Echohawk reacted to Wednesday's news with praise, stating Hill will be a strong addition to the federal judiciary in Oklahoma. NARF and NCAI have long advocated for increasing Native representation in the federal court system. It is imperative to have federal judges who understand the unique relationship between the United States and tribal nations who reflect a more diverse swath of the districts that they serve. Hill must be confirmed by the Senate and would serve as a judge in the Northern District of Oklahoma. Now to Washington, D.C., where the Interior Department has decided to phase out all single-use plastic on public lands over the next decade. All bureaus and offices have finalized plans which support a secretary's order. The order, signed by Laguna Pueblo citizen and Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland in 2022 to reduce the procurement, sale, and distribution of single-use plastics. This is part of a Biden executive order which calls for federal agencies to take steps in reducing single-use plastic. Since the signing of the order, facilities across the nation will make progress by installing water bottle filling stations, increasing recycling, and outright reducing single-use plastic. Plastic waste is a top priority environmental problem that devastates fish and wildlife around the world. Less than 10% of all the plastic ever made has been recycled, and rates are not increasing. At least 14 million tons of plastic end up in the ocean each year, and plastic makes up 80% of all marine debris. Limiting the use of single-use plastic and increasing recycling are vital steps in the fight against pollution and climate change. Heading back to the U.S., a sacred site in Oregon destroyed by the federal government is being restored. Some 15 years ago, tribal elders complained about the rush to extend the highway through sacred lands. However, federal transportation planners went ahead and constructed a turning lane on Highway 26 near Mount Hood. Members of the Confederated Tribes and bands of the Yakama Nation and the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde said the 2008 project destroyed the place of big trees. This site was a burial ground and included medicinal plants, old-growth Douglas firs, and other historic artifacts. After more than a decade of litigation, a settlement has resolved the issue by requiring federal agencies to plant trees, grant access to tribal people, and rebuild a stone altar. Transportation agencies were accused by plaintiffs of violating their religious freedom and the National Historic Preservation Act. That law requires tribal consultation when a federal project may affect places that are on tribal lands or of cultural and historic significance to a tribe. One of the plaintiffs, Carol Logan, who is an elder and a citizen of Grand Ronde, said she hopes the settlement will prevent destruction of other sacred sites in the future. Moving to Alaska, plans to create statewide reading standards for Alaska Native languages are underway. The Alaska Department of Education will hire an Alaska Native language education specialist to create reading standards for students from kindergarten to third grade. Alaska Natives within the state read and speak in over 20 distinct languages. Currently, no reading standard for competency exists, making it difficult for schools to translate learning progress to the state. According to officials, creation of the standards is in response to public feedback from the Alaska Native Language Preservation and Advisory Council. Kenight citizen and Director of Tribal Affairs for the Alaska Department of Education, Joel Isak, said the new standards will support Alaska Native language instruction and increase access to education. Once standards are developed by the new specialists, they will be publicly processed for adoption by the state's Board of Education. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and a Florida casino is working with the community to help raise millions. In partnership with the American Cancer Society and Hard Rock International, the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino will raise money and sell merchandise to benefit cancer awareness and research efforts. Community and tribal citizens will collaborate to put on a cancer walk and poker tournament to support the cause. In addition to selling pink-themed food and beverage items at the casino, a limited edition commemorative pin designed by Seminole citizen and artist Victoria Billy Ocelia will be sold. 100% of profits from the commemorative pin will go to the American Cancer Society. Last year, Pinktober raised over $1 million for breast cancer awareness. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. On Monday, the International Olympic Committee announced that lacrosse, the medicine game, will be played in the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. It will mark the first time the Indigenous game will be played in the Olympics since 1908. Stewart Huntington spoke with Rex Lyons from the Haudenosaunee Nationals the next morning about the idea of peace through lacrosse.
Yeah, Yawahaskano. My name is Dehoi Dadi, which means he gets the message through.
Sir, the message came through loud and clear yesterday. This is quite a day.
It is. It's an extraordinary day for lacrosse, our gift to the world as the Haudenosaunee, the originators of the game of lacrosse. It's a real day of celebration. You know, it's a medicine game first and foremost, and it's no surprise to us that it's taken such root around the world, and people have embraced it and have now, just as much as enthusiasm as we do for the game. And like I said, it's an extraordinary day for the sport and for the Haudenosaunee being the originators of the game. We were really in good spirits.
Tell me more about your phrase, it's a medicine game. What does that mean, sir?
Oh, when it was gifted to us by the Creator, it was first medicinal, for the health and welfare of our people, our nation, our individuals. That's what it was created for, as well as the spirit and vitality of the nation. Keeping our physical conditioning up and those kinds of things. But it's a medicine game in the ceremonial form, and it also translates into the secular game. Now that the game that we all know and enjoy in its forms of the field lacrosse and the indoor game. But it's all lacrosse, no matter how you play it, whatever the format is, the stick and ball and the player, the athletes working in concert for common cause.
This is exciting to be able to take that deeper message that this is more than just a sport to the Olympics, to the biggest stage that we have as human beings.
Yeah, it's extraordinary thinking of where we reside, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, up in central New York and western northern New York, and as well as Ontario, Canada. It's really kind of surreal to think that our game has grown, so vastly, and that everybody's really taking such joy in it, and it's now gotten to the biggest stage in the world, and we celebrate that, and we really are very excited about the potential of ourselves participating in the Olympics.
Talk to me about that. When you say ourselves participating, you're talking about the nation.
Yeah, the Haudenosaunee Nationals. We're third in the world in the outdoor game, second in the world in the indoor game. We are the best ambassadors for the game, and again, it's our gift to the world, and we just want to help celebrate and participate, and be part of the positivity that lacrosse is. It's the great connector, and you don't have to look very far to see that the world is in some very uncertain times, and the medicine of lacrosse does what it does. It brings people together in a good way, with a good mind and a good heart, and I think it's very timely, and there's no coincidence that it's being brought to the world stage at this point in time.
Your colleague mentioned the term "peace through lacrosse."
Absolutely, we always talk about it. The Haudenosaunee, our insignia, our sign is the tree of peace, which symbolizes all life, and working in concert and in harmony with all the rhythms of life. We understand this, and lacrosse is a vehicle to this, beliefs in our traditions and our values and our way of life, and understanding that you have to respect and protect all life, not just human beings, but all life. And lacrosse is one of the vehicles and platforms that we use to instruct our kids and instruct our people, and keep ourselves in check as well. It's a great vehicle for discipline and self-awareness and those kinds of things that I think are so paramount in these times.
What is the next step on getting the Nationals recognized by the IOC?
Well, we have to sit with the World Lacrosse and see what their suggestions are, and get an audience with the IOC, because they will tell us what they need from us, and we have some tremendous support across the board, and we want to, we don't want to steal anyone's thunder at this point in time. We want to celebrate that lacrosse is in, and that's kind of what we're rallying behind. But I would say probably not in the distant future, we'll be meeting with World Lacrosse, and we'll lay out the footsteps of getting an audience with the IOC, and I'm sure they'll give us our marching orders and what they'll need from us in order for us to have inclusion. And I know they want us there. It just a matter of what that looks like and how do we get there.
Sir, thank you very much for joining us today.
I appreciate the invitation. Thank you for having me.
Well, this was quite a week for ICT. First, the founder and editor-at-large, Mark Trahant, was inducted into the National Native American Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City. Then Indij Public Media's president, Karen Michel, will be honored tonight by the Women's Media Center in New York City. We thought we should do something different, and Mark and Karen decided to interview each other.
Tonight, the Women's Media Center in New York City is going to be giving an award to Karen Michel, the president of Indij Public Media. And earlier this week, I was given an honor by the National Native American Hall of Fame. So we thought we'd do something different and interview each other about our experiences with both of these awards. Let me start with you, Karen.
So I was really surprised when I was notified that I am the recipient of the Carol Jenkins Award that's given out by the Women's Media Center. And I've been a fan of Carol Jenkins for quite some time, and she's really a pioneer in broadcasting and worked as an anchor for many years, and I really consider her a trailblazer. So to receive an award named after her is really an honor.
One of the stories that I don't think people really understand or know is how important women are to ICT. And I start with the demographics, but think about foundation support and the leadership team.
Yeah, it's really one of the strengths I think that we have at ICT is just that breaking some of those gender boundaries that have been traditionally there in mainstream. So we have quite a few women who are in leadership roles, and I just think that it's a great strength that we have.
And our demographics, about 60% of the readership of the digital site of ICT have been women from the beginning.
Right, yeah, and that is so great to know because, women make a lot of the decisions, and I think what we do at ICT is really have a lot of information and things that, Native people need to know to make decisions. So I just like the fact that we do have so many women who are readers and members of our audience.
Our friendship goes back a few decades, and when I first met you, you were teaching at a tribal college. And I'm not sure that journalism was at the top of your list back then, but maybe talk about how you got into this whole thing.
Yeah, right. Well, you're right in that my undergraduate degree was in graphic arts management. And at the time I was working on the Winnebago Indian Reservation in Nebraska and teaching at the tribal college. But during the time there, I really noticed that it would benefit the tribal community if there were a daily newspaper or maybe a radio station that was covering the issues. And at the time, I had a bunch of students who were working for, a print shop that we had. And they learned about what was happening with the tribe, but when we go out in the community and talk about what the tribal government was doing, it just seemed like there was a lot of misinformation there. And so I asked my boss at the time if there were some other resources or I could learn more about journalism, and there just happened to be a conference going on in Albuquerque, and it was the Native American, I think it was called Media Conference, and that's the first time that I really saw Native people who were working for their own tribes in terms of, tribal media, and then people who were working in mainstream media. And it just really got me to thinking about that. And then from there, I decided to go back to college and get my journalism degree. And so that's what started me on a career path in journalism.
Well, let's talk about the career path. Where did that take you?
After I got my degree, I started out working for a Lee Enterprises paper near where I grew up, and it was Lacrosse Tribune. So I worked in different newspapers. I've worked for the Dallas Morning News, and then eventually with some Gannett papers, and worked in different roles from reporter to executive editor. So it's really been great to be able to do that. And I also did work for some tribal newspapers as well. So just really important to be in that field of journalism.
And I should say that I've failed in my introduction because it's also Dr. Karen Michel. And you got your doctorate, honorary doctorate from Marquette. Maybe talk about that and its significance.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that also was just very surprising to get that honorary degree. And some people work so hard for many years on a doctorate, and then I just had one sort of handed to me. But I was told it was for the breadth of the career that I've had, the different things that we've done, and so yeah, it was just amazing.
I want to give some room for you to turn the tables and ask me questions, but kind of wrapping this up. I remember sitting in a Miami coffee shop and saying, there's this easy job that you could take as president of ICT, probably just 6-7 hours a day, having everything done for you, and being president of a large media organization, and you ignored all that and took the job. Tell us about what you're most proud of at ICT.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. Just having had a career mostly in the mainstream, where it's very challenging and very different, and a lot of times you have to advocate for why it's important to cover communities of color and Indigenous issues. And then to come to a place where that's all we do is we, report on Indigenous communities. And so it's just really great. And I think I told you at the time, it just felt like coming home after all those decades of doing different things in journalism. To have this opportunity to serve our own community, it just really means a lot. So I guess I'll start asking some questions of you, Mark. So again, you just won this or have been inducted into the National Native American Hall of Fame. But before I ask you what that meant, I wanted to ask you some other questions. I guess the first one being that I remember that you had said that when you were a young boy, you started or had a crayon newspaper called The Sun. And so you also said that you just knew that you wanted to be a news reporter. So I wanted to ask you, where does that come from, that knowing that this is what you want to do?
I grew up in a household where people always had newspapers, and I remember as a kid, back then they had the Salt Lake Tribune, had an Idaho edition, they had a local newspaper in Pocatello, they had one in Blackfoot, they had one in Idaho Falls, and I always liked the idea that you could take the same event and see different perspectives of that, and I always thought that that's, to me, one of the strengths is having people tell different stories about the same thing and knowing that they're all true, they're just different. And that you could kind of build something on that storytelling tradition. I love the idea that the world was available back then for a quarter. Now, of course, it's all digital, so in our case, it's free. But your access to ideas beyond your own were so easy.
So now you've been a reporter and an editor, a columnist, a publisher. Let's see, an entrepreneur, you've owned your own for-profit newspaper, and then now you have the nonprofit ICT. So in all these different things that you've done, what would you say is a common thread there or a guiding principle that has guided you through all of this?
To me, the guiding principle has always been giving people access to news and finding different ways to deliver that access. Whether it's been through, to me, the surprise in my career is how much television I ended up doing. I never expected that, and don't think of myself as a television person even now. But when I was, 1989 was a finalist for the Pulitzer, and Frontline asked me to do a film right after that, and I really enjoyed it. And I started thinking there's a medium that has some potential, and so I think at that point I probably became open to any media to get the story out, thinking that all of them have different strengths and weaknesses.
So you've just been inducted into the National Native American Hall of Fame. Can you talk a little bit about that and your place in history, I guess?
Well, I think my place in history is asking the questions of the people that are in the hall, and I like that. So many of the people that are either inducted into the hall since its beginning or those from this week's ceremony, I've covered, and I know their stories, and I've been around them at different points, and I'm really appreciative of that. I do believe, and I'm going to write a column about this, we need to have a canon of stories that young people know that they can then appreciate so they know how we got here, that things don't seem new, and they think, wow, wait, this isn't new. This has happened before, and we're in a period, I really buy into the idea that history rhymes, and one story leads to another story.
And could you just, reflect a little bit about, your career, but then I also want to ask you, could spin that forward, and what do you see as the future?
I just have been so lucky in my career. I've been at the right place at the right time so often, and sometimes it's not something I planned, it just happened. One of my favorite stories about that, I actually told at the hall, and that I was invited to give a speech at this really small community in Ontario, Kettle Point, Ontario. And it's a small reserve just about an hour north of Detroit. And the day that I happened to give the speech, the other speaker on the program was Elijah Harper, who had just voted to defeat the Canadian Constitution. And he was like a conquering hero. And I was there, able to write about it, and was the only journalist there. but it was because I was there for another reason. So that kind of serendipity has just followed me through my career, and I'm really fortunate.
And then any thoughts about the future?
Well, I mean, personally, my future, I hope, is I want more time to write. I mean, of all the jobs I do, and I'm happy to step into so many, to me, the first love is writing and reporting and being able to tell stories and just get into the nuance of something. I really like complexity. There are so many stories that we tell that end up being black and white and sharply focused. And I don't think those are accurate because things are always more muddled and there are threads that go all over the place. And I really like exploring those threads and picking them apart.
Great. Well, it's just been really good to know that I guess we're being honored at the same time. So it's feels really great. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
To put this all into perspective, ICT was relaunched in June of 2018. And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.